We're about news, commentary, conversations, truth, liberty, and God. We stand for American values and our flag. We believe that the Constitution is a document that fortifies rights already given to us by our Creator. We will not apologize for our love of God and country, ever. We are Right America Media.
I don't know what to say about this bump music. Oh my God, they're. Are you serious? You guys are drinking in the studio. Our producer, ladies and gentlemen, is getting white girl wasted on what is that godforsaken thing? High Noon. Okay,
right,
so at least it's not a White Claw.
Let's get white girl wasted. I'm going to lose my heels and puke in my purse after this.
Welcome to a brand spanking new, alcoholically fueled edition of Granite State Live.
I feel like I'm being left out.
This is just,
I would have brought a bottle of bourbon so I could chill in the studio if that's what we were doing.
If we're going to do that, then I want cigars. I want a smoke eater in here.
Right.
I want cigars. All right. Great to have you along on this. I can tell you right now it's going to be a fiery edition of Granite State Live on this Tuesday, the 12th day of August. August almost halfway done. Crazy. Summer, kiss it goodbye. I'm your host, Keith Hansen, the unapologetic contrarian conservative, heavily armed as always, never apologizing for my toxic white masculinity. I was born this way. Never apologizing for my Christian faith, heavily armed as always. And if you would like to be a part of the program tonight, our call-in number, 833-603-8255. That's 833-603-TALK. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com is the email address. If you would like to share your thoughts, call us, whatever you want to call us. It's okay. We're thick-skinned. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. If you want to be a part of the program via video link, you can do that as well, too. Send a request to GraniteStateLive@gmail.com, and Juan will get that link out to you lickety-split.
And welcome back to Granite State Live. I'm Julian Aciard, host of the Blue Collar Intellectual Podcast and author of United We Stand, teetering back and forth between ambivalence, outrage, moral indignation, and trying to add a little bit of brevity and levity to life and be a voice of reason. It's all going to shit in a handbasket, but hey, we're going to have some laughs and make fun of it all right here today. So tune in.
Good stuff. Was that must have been, I don't know. See, this is what happens when you start giving the production crew high noons. Things start going out of whack. So, we got a great show coming up for you this evening. We got Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation from the Ronald Reagan Legal Center. We're going to be talking about the Home Rule Act. Very interesting announcement coming out of Washington, D.C. this week that the Washington, D.C. Metro Police Department is now being federalized. And, of course, the normal rhetoric that you would hear, oh, this is fascism, this is blah, 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 blah. So we'll get into that, certainly, with Michael O'Neill. Just looking up here on Drudge Report, The headline on Drudge Report: Trump building police state. Oh, that's right. Yeah, we gotta get the alarmist headlines out there. This is not the one that's up right now. Currently, it is Trump building police state. Watch and monitor citizens. Widespread discontent among National Guard, and the Pentagon plans the reaction force. The one that Juan had just put up there. Trump's America federalizes police, deploying troops to the D.C. streets. New York City, L.A., and Chicago next. Oh, God, I hope so.
Oh, my God, the redcoats are coming. The redcoats are coming. But you know what? Last week, you had a moment. You had a moment where you were really, really fiery and you got lit up. What's going on? How are you feeling this week?
How am I feeling? I'm feeling about 10 times magnified what I was last week. Let me tell you where I am right now. I know I had shared my thoughts, my most intimate thoughts on Scott Brown.
Yeah.
And I had, I guess you could say I kind of went after you for why do you support these people and why do you keep kissing these people's asses? And I got to be honest with you, Julian. The reason why is because I am done. I'm done. I'm done with trying to educate people. I don't care anymore. Honest to God, I don't care anymore. All I want to do is fight. I just want to fight. No. Seriously.
No,
I'm tired of the rhetoric. I'm exhausted of the rhetoric. And, this is going back several years. Daniel Richard had asked me as part of a presentation that I was doing, hey, could you, why don't people get involved? And so I spent a couple of months interviewing about 500 people, and we were able to classify people in 3 different categories. One of them was people who haven't gotten involved because they don't feel as though there's a reason for them to get involved yet. This is the crowd
I remember. We shared we shared that along with a setup of slides explaining through our conversation that we had privately of what it is to be a grifter and why people don't. That was a good conversation. I remember that class.
Yep. And so and that became the foundation for a number of speeches that I had given around New Hampshire, not just in New Hampshire, but throughout New England as well too. And so the big thing is the people who haven't been motivated to get involved because it hasn't gotten bad enough. They haven't been made uncomfortable enough yet, was exactly how I worded it. Then you had the other people who are afraid of being made uncomfortable. And then you had the people who have been involved and feel as though that they've been taken advantage of, that they've been, things have been squandered and so on and so forth. And I'm somewhere between the first group and the second or the third group at this point.
There's another group though. There's the group of people who refuse to get involved because they've seen what happens to the people that do.
Mm-hmm.
That's the other side.
Well, those are the people who are afraid to get involved because they're afraid of the retribution.
Yeah.
I'm not afraid of retribution. I don't give a rat's ass what anybody thinks. I'm thick-skinned. I don't care. And I think that's what makes me, in the philosophical sense, dangerous because I don't have any dirt. I don't have any ex-wives. I don't have any bastard children. I don't have any pissed-off drug dealers, and I don't have any dead hookers in my closet. So, listen, the Democrats have tried. They've got their opposition files on everybody, and I think one of the reasons primarily that Ray Buckley has avoided ever retorting anything that I've said is because he doesn't have any dirt on me. So, congratulations. I don't care. If I piss people off, I don't care. Because at the end of the day, the only thing that concerns me is when I meet my maker and I have to justify what I did on this earth. Did I live a life that sought to fulfill the kingdom of heaven here on earth? Yeah. And I believe that I have. I believe that I have lived my life as a good, honest, moral Christian person. And I have gotten to the point now, Julian, I'm just exhausted. And I'm tired. I'm tired of myopic, stupid people who cannot think critically, who couldn't critically think their way out of a wet paper bag. Yeah. I'm tired of politicians exploiting these stupid masses. I see as much Kool-Aid drinking on the right side of the aisle as I do on the left side of the aisle. Yeah. The right loves to turn around and point fingers at the Democrats and say, "Oh, what a bunch of sheep." I hate to break it to you people, but many people, even people who are watching this show right now, are guilty of the same mindless, brain-dead, myopic, lack of critical thinking, garbage regurgitation that you accuse the people on the left of doing.
Yep.
I'm watching people destroy themselves here in New Hampshire. I'm sure many of you understand exactly who I'm talking about. But there is a campaign to burn down every last goddamn bridge in the state, and there are several people that are doing just that. I'm watching politicians that are posturing. I'm watching grifter politicians that are trying to exploit for money and votes, everything else. And to be honest with you, they're all full of shit. What I want to see is bodies stacked up at the gallows. Show me that there's actual change. Don't tell me that there's change. Bullshit. And as far as Trump goes, show us the Epstein files. Otherwise, you're complicit because you're either hiding something or you're going to release them. You're hiding something because you're protecting either yourself or you're protecting people that you in some way, shape, or form want to do business with, you want to monetize, whatever the case may be.
So where I look at this is when you're an activist or you're in media, you don't have to worry about being effective or actually accomplishing anything because you're the whistleblower for everything that's happening. And you have the opportunity and the ability to say the things that nobody else can say because you're not responsible for actually passing legislation or anything like that. The problem is the very system that we're criticizing, that I have no problem telling anybody, Scott, Kelly, Ayotte, whatever, that I disagree with them to their face and still remaining amicable in my relationships with pretty much everybody because I like everybody generally. It takes a lot for me to really not like somebody, and that means that you had to do something to me in most cases, or you had to do something that is so irreparably beyond the pale that I'm like, take them out, put a bullet in them, and that's pedophile type shit. But I look at this and I go, all right. When I look at somebody, I go, do I disagree with them? Yeah, tell them where I disagree with them in a respectful manner to the degree possible so that we can work together, keep as much salvageable that we can work together on being effective on whatever we can. Don't burn a bridge so that I can't walk over it later. However, at the same time, I'm going to be honest with you. When I ran for office, I was honest. I said everything, never went back, never double spoke, never held a position, took it back later. I tried to be completely fucking honest with everybody. And what pissed me off more than anything is people don't want fucking honesty. People don't want honesty. Everybody wants to be lied to. We live in a world full of emotional basket cases, a bunch of whiny little girls, both men and women included, on the right and the left, who don't want to be told the truth. The truth is that we're speeding towards a cliff and nobody's putting on the brakes. And our version of putting on the brakes on the right is going moderately 85 miles an hour instead of the left's 100 miles an hour. There is no solution being proposed right now. It's all piecemeal Band-Aid shit. And when you propose the real solution to the problem, it requires a level of uncomfortability with understanding that the first step to getting into the gym, to getting the freaking beach body, so you can have the six-pack and the big ding-a-ling on the beach and be picking up all the girls, is you gotta get on the goddamn Stairmaster and step in the gym in the first place. You can't skip leg day, people.
I just want to, and this is a perfect example, Joyce Klug, blah, blah, blah. Hey, Joyce, do us a favor. Call in, be a part of the conversation, or go watch Jeopardy.
Yeah,
but tune out, because you know what? You're contributing nothing of substance to the conversation. So
exactly,
piss off.
Rhetorically, rip
and you know what I have, I said to Juan, I said I'll even go after people who are watching the show, because at this point in time, I'm done. I don't care.
Yeah,
I don't care. I will use this platform.
We're cucks for the World Economic Forum. I will any shits about two guys in New Hampshire.
I will use the platform to go after everybody that I feel I need to go after, and that's the bottom line.
You know why we're here, where politicians have to lie and they can't tell you the truth? I've met a lot of people that would love to be completely honest on the campaign trail and tell you exactly what they think. They can't, because like I said, we got a bunch of whiny little bitches in America. We're no longer the American exceptionalism we used to, where people could take hard truths and keep it moving towards a common goal. We live in a world of pussified America where we all need cry blankets and safe spaces. If you're on a campaign trail, you got to powder people's asses to make them feel good. How much red meat gets tossed out during an election cycle? How much focusing on men and girls sports do we do? Congratulations, that affects very, very, very few people. Yeah, it feels really good to stand up and, wave my freaking flag and tell you how pissed off I am, but that doesn't affect 95% of the people in the state. You know what does? Housing costs, heating and electricity prices, the inability,
But what you're talking about is bread and circus, though.
Yeah.
Nobody gives a shit about housing prices. Nobody gives a shit about any of that because to be honest with you, that's not what sells. That's not the emotional pull. And this goes to show you the emotional bankruptcy and the intellectual bankruptcy of the voter population.
We give too many people sugar and red meat when they need to be eating their goddamn vegetables. You need to be sitting down, as Sonny Johnson says, you need a dose of vegetables. Your mom made you sit down and eat the goddamn broccoli. Guess what, America? You need to eat some freaking broccoli because we're at a point where we're about to watch America fall off a cliff and no one's doing shit about it. And I'm honestly, I used to want to be productive in politics. I wanted to run for office to actually pass legislation, to be a voice of brevity, a voice of reason, to not be one of the grifters who are going to walk into D.C., tell you everything you want to hear, and then deliver you jack shit. And when they step into the rooms and they say, hey, I'm going to threaten you, you're not going to get your committee seat, or you're not going to get donations, or you're not going to get reelected, walk right back out to Fox News, MSNBC, CNN, and go, you know what I just got freaking told? That if I don't lay down, if I don't bend over and drop my trousers to my ankles and take it like a man, that I'm not going to get reelected. They're going to sabotage me. They're going to go after my family. They're going to ruin me.
Well, that's one of the reasons that you need not tort reform, but
campaign finance reform.
No. I'm drawing a blank here. I haven't even touched my coffee yet. No, that's why you need term limits.
Yeah.
Because instead of worrying about getting yourself reelected, go in there, do as much damage, and I mean in a good way, that you possibly can, get the hell out, and let somebody else take over. Yeah. But again, one of the reasons why I despise Scott Brown, why do you have to make politics your career? Get a job. Do something else. Go be a greeter. Hi, welcome to Walmart. Can I see your receipt? Go jockey carriages at a market basket. You did your time. Get out. Why do you have to make this what you do for a living? And that's what makes politicians despicable, Julian.
How many
It's
terms
because
do you
the
serve as a
only
mass?
thing that they wanted, it doesn't matter. You did your time, and you did your time in Mass. Now you want to come up here and you want to do it in New Hampshire. Why? Because you're the person, and this goes back to the conversation with Jeff Deal, because you're going to be the one person out of all of these politicians that have come before you that is going to make a big difference. No, you're all talk. And at the end, you want the money, you want the respect, you want the ego stroke, and then you want the adulation that's going to push your posterity forward.
Here's my question. One, how long did he serve as a senator in Massachusetts?
Doesn't matter. He
It
served.
does matter.
He did his time.
No,
Get the hell out.
It does matter.
It's with any of these people.
If you believe in term limits, which I do, if you believe in term limits, which I do, I signed the term limits pledge. That's 2 terms in the Senate, and you're out. If he served 1 term in the Senate in Massachusetts, I don't have a problem with him serving a term.
How many times has he run?
My only
since?
I think once. Didn't he? He lost against Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
So I'm sorry, not Elizabeth Warren. Who was it? Was it Jean Shaheen? It was Jean Shaheen.
Jean Shaheen.
Yeah.
Okay. So the bottom line is this: the people have spoken. They don't want to move on. Let's start putting other people in who actually can do the job.
Now,
people
here's the question: who has the balls to step up? Because you know why we have to keep going back to the trough of established people? Nobody has the balls to step up. And I mean, think about it. Look at what even as Republicans, even on the right side of the aisle, look at what we do to each other each campaign cycle.
We
you
brutalize
have any
each
idea
other.
what goes on behind the scenes? Do you know what friggin' Matt and Caroline, or what the 22 cycle, what the candidates were about to do to each other in the primary? Look at the shit they brought out against Caroline. Like, this is getting insane. We do so much opposition research as Republicans into each other. The Democrats just got to run B-roll of our attacks on each other during the general election. And then, even if you make it through and you're one of their nice guys, remember what they did to Romney and McCain, right? Oh, these are the acceptable Republicans. These are the ones we could deal with, not those far-right guys. And as soon as they went on to general election, what would they become? The far-right, racist, sexist, misogynistic, xenophobic, a whole bunch of words that they don't even know the freaking definitions of. All of a sudden, they became the guy. That's the problem. Even on the right, we destroy Everybody who runs for office, you can't, if you run and you lose a primary in a lot of cases, you can't get a second shot at the trough. It's sad. The whole system is bunk from get-go, from the start.
So you're making my point for me. You're making my point, and
no,
this becomes
I'm saying
and
you
this
have
becomes
to become fake to make it through a fake system, and then once you get into the system, come on, what are your incentive to actually change the system you just got elected by? If you try to change it, the system will destroy you. You'll be the next one up on sexual harassment charges. You'll be the next one getting carted off for drug charges.
So you bring me now to my next point, which is
fucking DC,
which is at this point,
yeah,
just like an alcoholic,
yeah,
that or a drug addict that has to hit rock bottom in order to have that temporary moment of clarity, and then maybe begin the process of building themselves up. I think at this point, and I've been saying this before, and I will say this now, because again, we saw people, if Trump gets elected, this is going to be we can sit back in our Barco loungers and do absolutely nothing. We can be lazy. And we've said this before. People are not looking for a motivator to get them up to do things. They want somebody who's going to go out and fight on their behalf.
yeah.
And the bottom line is that we are fat, lazy, complacent. I'll say addicts. We're all addicts, Julian. We're addicted to fast food. We're addicted to sugar. We're addicted to dopamine. You've got the social justice warriors that get their dopamine fix from going out and championing whatever idiotic cause du jour that happens to come down the pike. We're uneducated. We're ignorant. Look at the man on the street interviews. These used to be things that were funny. Jay Leno on the Tonight Show, I think really was one of the first people to start doing the man on the street interviews. And Jesse Waters became famous for it. And they go out and they interview these people who they could tell you who Kim Kardashian is banging this week, but they couldn't tell you anything about who did we celebrate independence from. France?
We were just talking about that on the last show. On my show, we were saying it. It was like you walk up to the average Gen Z person. They can't tell you the last three presidents, despite that they've lived through all three and done book reports on all three. They can't. Hell, during the 2020 election, half of them couldn't even tell you who the last three presidents are, and two of them are in the fucking race. We're living in this. It's like.
As of right now, this is my point. My point is that I think at this point in time, the system needs to burn down. The entire thing needs to burn down because Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. The corruption is rampant. The cancer has metastasized. These people are evil, immoral, disgusting human beings. You may choose to want to be nice to them to maintain a relationship for whatever reason. I really don't give a rat's ass. I think they all should burn in hell. I think that would be a really, really good start. And then, you know what? Maybe a good hard reset. Yeah, let's eliminate 2/3 of the population. Let them fight it out amongst themselves.
Oh, God, I'm not that pessimistic yet. I will say this. The last show, in between shows, I was talking with Andy from Citizens Doge, and we were talking about how the market, whether it be relationship dynamics, psychology, economic markets, everything operates on forward projections, right? In American politics, everybody on the right is celebrating all this shit that's happening culturally and legislatively, like the whole Sydney Sweeney shit and how so many corporations are pulling back from the abyss. And we're going, oh my God, we've won the culture war. We won the culture war. Andy made a good point. He was saying, no, you're in the eye of the storm right now. You're in a momentary peace because this wave that just came through gave us a little bit of breathing room. But guess what? Around the end of Trump's term, America and the rest of the world are going to have a decision to make.
We got about 3 minutes here before we go to the break. I want to illustrate one thing here.
Hold up. The decision that we're going to have to make is, do we go back? The reason why I focus on so many of the ridiculous shit happening on the right, the anti-Semitism, the racism, all that shit, is because not that those people are a large amount of people, but that they're, because of social media, able to artificially amplify their voice to have a larger impact on politics than they should or normally could. And if we're trending in this direction of actually fixing and moving away from the abyss, America, and that's the voice people see, on our side of the aisle, there's going to be a gut vomit like knee-jerk reaction in the opposite direction, and the communists, the Marxists, whatever the fuck we want to call them, have already got 95% of the shit they want. They're almost there. When the pendulum swings back, we're done. Dunskies, it's over.
As far as the being in the eye of the storm, I would agree.
Yeah.
Okay, because again, this is, what do we got? A little more than 3 years left of the Trump administration. What we are going to see, I believe, and I've said this before, that Biden broke a time-honored tradition of giving the previous administration a pass. Now, I don't necessarily know if Trump were ineligible for, which certainly I think is what they were trying to do. They were trying to invalidate his campaign and to prevent him from running from office.
Yeah.
But if he were not a viable candidate to begin with, let's say that he finished up his second term, do I think that they would have gone after him? No, because he doesn't represent an existential threat.
Yeah.
However, because he does represent the existential threat in the form of being a candidate who is likely going to wind up winning again.
Yeah.
This is going back to the Biden administration. Well, now we have to make sure that we're prosecuting and we have to hold these people accountable. And that was violation of an age-old tradition that when the incoming administration comes in, I mean, we're not talking high crimes and misdemeanors. We're talking about just the things that we may not necessarily agree with. They have pretty much left it alone.
And notice they didn't go after anybody else during that campaign cycle.
So now what's going to wind up happening is when Trump is out of office, if Democrats wind up in office, then we're going to start to see this never-ending battle of "I got you last."
Yep.
And it's like the ongoing war between the Crips and the Bloods in Los Angeles.
Political gangbanging.
I got you last.
Yeah.
Nobody ever wins an "I got you last" battle.
It's straight up political gangbanging, and even the colors match. We got it going on.
This, I think, is going to be a terrifying new era in this country.
That's
when
right. Trump
Trump is out of office and the Democrats get in, I think you're going to wind up seeing a significant amount of lawfare. You're going to see lawfare go up. And we'll talk about, this concept that Trump right now is engaging in lawfare. No, I believe that Trump is actually doing what he was supposed to do. In the context of Washington, D.C., if you can't do it on your home front, then get out of the way and let somebody do it. So we're going to talk about that. Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation. We're going to be talking about Trump's invocation of the Home Rule Act. That, your phone calls, and much, much more. Come on, Joyce. Don't be a coward. Call in. Share your thoughts and not just a social justice or social media warrior.
Get ready for gangland, blood in, blood out politics, people, because that's what we're dealing with.
I don't even know why I bother. Much more of Granite State Live coming up right after this. Don't go away.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best-looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Esiard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
I want to wear a hat. You know what? I want to wear a hat.
I want to climb into the bottom of a bottle.
Are we on? Oh, good. Okay, good. I guess glad I didn't say what was really on my mind. All right, welcome back to Granite State Live on this 12th day of August 2025. All right, coming up here in just a moment, we've got Michael Neal, Vice President of Legal Affairs for the Landmark Legal Foundation. And then coming up in an hour, Mark Quann, who I think is on the line, but he's not actually scheduled until 8:30. Mark Quann, author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. Wow, I got to talk to him. That's going to be a good thing. Yeah, he's going to be joining us here at 8:30, and then coming up at 8 o'clock is Gary Gall, professor of economics at Pepperdine University and an adjunct scholar at the von Mises Institute, author of Freedom in One Lesson, The Best of Leonard Read. I think it was Leonard Read that wrote I, Pencil. Was it not? I believe it was. Great story. Great story. iPencil, if you haven't had a chance to read that. All right, well, coming up here, Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation. As I'm sure many of you are aware, unless you've been living under a rock, which a lot of ignorant people do, that Trump invoked the Home Rule Act this week, taking decisive action to restore safety and sanity in the once great city of Washington, D.C. Well, according to Trump now, D.C. is no longer going to tolerate crime and lawlessness. I'll wait to see if that actually comes true or not. But federalizing or putting the Washington, D.C. Metro Police Department under DOJ control and bringing in the National Guard and clearing out all of the homeless encampments, everything that he needs to do to make Washington, D.C. great again. So to share his thoughts on this, Michael O'Neill, again, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation. Great to have you on the program. Thanks for jumping back on with us.
It's always great to be with you guys.
I'm in kind of a sarcastic mood tonight, so I'm going to apologize in advance if you haven't picked up on that. I'm feeling a little bit snarky here, but I got to be honest with you. I'm sitting listening to the press conference the other day, and I'm thinking, good, because if you can't do your job, you get eliminated. And What is the problem with the Washington, D.C. Metro Police Department that they can't get rampant crime under control? I mean, it's become a cesspool. And nobody wants to go there. And the nation's capital, which should be a welcoming beacon of light on the hill to dignitaries and politicians and visitors from all over the world, people don't want to go there because they're going to get attacked by ghetto rats. So, it's about time that this happened. And you know what? New York, Washington, or New York, what's the Drudge Report here? L.A., Chicago, next. I say bring it on. Federalize it all. Start locking these criminals up.
Well, I think you start with Washington, D.C., right? Because as you said, Washington, D.C. should really be the shining city on the hill. And President Trump actually talked about this yesterday. If you think about it in context of how much law enforcement is actually in Washington, D.C., it's really absolutely insane that it's not a safe city, quote unquote, safe city, that lawlessness has reigned the past 5-6 years post-COVID. When you think about it, we've got the headquarters of the FBI, we've got the headquarters of the Secret Service, we've got the headquarters of the DEA, you've got field offices for all of the federal agencies, you've got park police, you've got military police, you've got the DC Metropolitan Police. I mean, you can't go 2 seconds without seeing some sort of law enforcement official. And yet, what do you have? You have this lawlessness that has reigned really post-COVID. It's really become pronounced. So I think when you really think about what are the causes of this, because there was a time, I mean, back in the 90s, just quickly, back in the 90s, the crack wars, early 90s, late 80s, DC was a no-go zone, right? I mean, there was a lot of parts of DC that were not safe. Marion Barry was the mayor, wasn't a place you really want to visit it. Of course, what happened? Common sense regulations, common sense policing took effect. Rudolph Giuliani with the broken windows theory, you started implementing procedures and practices to ensure that you're going to have safe cities. And DC was a great place. Go to DC in 2006, 2007, 2008. Wonderful place. But post-COVID, all of these new policies have been instituted. They've decriminalized a lot of juvenile offenses. There's no cash bail. There's not enforcement. There's not institutional support for these rank and file police officers. Think about it. If you're on the job and you're walking the beat or you're walking a street and you're not going to get any backup if you make a wrong arrest or if you profile somebody or if you take some sort of action that is deemed improper, you're not going to have any institutional backup. So that's a disincentive for you to actually do your job. Well, President Trump has taken action to do away with a lot of that.
And again, I think it's about time because you've seen far too many instances where chief law enforcement officers of these agencies. Now, I mean, normally that term, chief law enforcement officer, is reserved for sheriffs, but we'll talk about police chiefs, for instance. And I can tell you here in New Hampshire, I've had many conversations with a variety of sitting sheriffs. And one of the first questions that I ask them in the conversation is, are you a politician or are you a lawman? Because you can't do both. These chiefs of police that are answering to leftist mayors and leftist city councilors, they're not lawmen. They're politicians. They're trying to do their job. And again, as Julian and I were talking earlier about term limits, listen, you know what? I may have the shortest career as a police chief, but I'm going to tell you, stay in your lane. If you're the mayor and you're telling me how to do my job, shut the hell up and let me do my job. Unless you want to now go from being the mayor to the chief of police. I'll worry about the law enforcement in my community. You worry about the ass kissing and baby pissing and sweet smiling and palm pressing and being a politician. And that's what these people need to do. They need to grow balls and start acting like lawmen and realize that when your streets are overrun by criminal thugs, by criminal gangs who feel that they are literally bulletproof, that the laws don't apply to them, and they can do and operate however they want to with immunity and impunity, it's about time that somebody sends a clear, decisive message. This action will not be tolerated, and if you do, you're going to get incarcerated or you're going to get dead, period.
I'm going to say this. I'm going to say this and preface this. I'm going to add the caveat. We're not saying that law enforcement officers, when they are actually doing bad things and breaking the law, should not be held accountable. What we're saying is they deserve our support in actually creating safe communities in America. We should not be allowing our streets to be run rampant with crime and degenerates and stuff, and then making excuses for it on the back end. There has to be a level of balance and pragmatism here.
Yeah, absolutely. And you talk about politicians, chief of police or superintendent of police as a politician. I think you also have to assume a base level of competency. Did you see the press? I don't know if you saw the press conference earlier today where the chief of police for Washington, D.C. didn't understand a simple question about chain of command.
Yeah.
And so I think you're presuming that the person's a politician. I want to presume competence too, but I don't think we can presume even competence in these instances. How have these individuals been assigned to their positions, where these serious positions? And if you don't even understand basic rules of like what is chain of command, and you have problems with that simple notion, I think it says something about whether you're going to be competent to adequately run your police force in your city. Now, let's be clear. You have to be serious people in positions to enforce the laws and back your police force. You saw an interesting, gentleman. You saw that the head of the police union in Washington, D.C. was all for this. I think he understands. I think the head of the police union and the rank and file police officers understand, the Metropolitan PD understands that, hey, we don't have the supervisory or institutional support behind us that's necessary to ensure that if we go out on a limb and if we're actually being effective in trying to enforce the laws and ensure that some of these individuals, these thugs, and these individuals who are constantly breaking the laws are held to account, we might not be hung out to dry and left on an island out there. So I think now when you see that the federalization of the Metropolitan Police Department, let's be very clear, what authority does the president have to do this? He has the authority under the Home Rule Act. You referenced that before. He has specific statutory authority to declare an emergency in Washington, D.C., a crime emergency, and then federalize the Metropolitan Police Force for the Metropolitan Washington, D.C. Police Force. So now, of course, instead of answering to the mayor or instead of answering to the chief of police, they're answerable to Pam Bondi and the Department of Justice.
I want to throw out there's a concept that we talk about in the military quite often, the idea of following an unlawful order or refusing to follow an unlawful order. It is equally unlawful to tell a cop or police not to follow the law, just as it is equally unlawful to tell them to break the law. Whether you're enforcing the law or refusing to enforce the law, both are unlawful orders. And I don't understand how we keep electing people or allowing people to be elected, or that goes to the competency thing, getting in positions of power where they don't understand that very basic concept. No, you're not going to tell me to just let crime slide on my watch. And sure as hell, you're not going to tell me to beat the shit out of a bunch of people and shut down their synagogue during the middle of COVID. There needs to be some level of common sense here.
Absolutely, and there needs to be also some truthfulness to this. You can't juke the stats, and we know this is what's been presented to the American public by the people who are obviously reflexively opposing Donald Trump. Look, it's funny you think about this. The people who actually know the situation on the ground in Washington, D.C., who live in Washington, D.C., who have to work in Washington, D.C., go through there every day, understand that this is a necessary task that has to happen. Now, you'll have the individuals who say, oh, crime's decreased. The first response I say to that is, decreased from what? If it's an all-time high and if it's decreased a little bit, it's still intolerable. And then, of course, are you juking the stats? In other words, are you making misdemeanors? Are you making felonies misdemeanors? Are you taking ag assaults and moving them to assaults? The only one, again, when you're talking about crime statistics, the only one that you can't juke is homicide. And you see where Washington, D.C. stands in regards to its homicide rate. I think it's 27 per 100,000. It makes every other jurisdiction look small, pale in comparison. So clearly something needs to be done. The president campaigned on this, law and order. It's imperative that our capital city, our shining city on a hill, is actually a place where everybody wants to go. And I think the president was just sick of having to drive through the city every day, see homeless encampments, see drug addicts, see thugs roaming around, having people be menaced. That individual from Doge, for example, who was simply trying to protect somebody who came to the city to work and help our country, has had to be assaulted and was assaulted. I think that really was the straw that kind of broke the camel's back and said, look, it's time to do something, and I have the power to do it, and I'm going to do something.
If I were Caroline Leavitt, I would bring a string of White House staffers and congressional staffers into the White House press briefing room to tell the stories about how often they get mugged, their cars get broken into, they get their shit stolen, their houses get broken into, and what they have to deal with just living in the national capital.
Yeah, and you saw a gentleman, a member of the press corps, I think, was talking about it today in her press conference, and he shared an incident where his house was subject to arson, and the firemen had to come in and break down the door to save his infant child. And so, who could be expected to have to tolerate that, particularly when the administration has the tools at its disposal? And this is a critical fact to talk about. We talk about federalizing other police forces. That's going to be something that I don't necessarily know where that authority would derive from. But here, remember, Washington, D.C. is a federal jurisdiction. It is under our constitutional structure. It is the federal jurisdiction. Congress has jurisdiction. The federal government has jurisdiction. It was only in 1970 that Congress decided to cede home rule again to a D.C. council and to a D.C. mayor. But at base, it is a federal city with federal jurisdiction. And if the federal government wants to take action to improve the quality of life for everybody in that city by addressing the rampant crime, then they're well within their constitutional and legal authority to do that.
Well, things have gotten so bad over the course of years that when drastic steps like this have to be taken for the purposes of restoring law and order and the citizens, I think, faith and trust in the system, it seems unbelievably stark. It seems very draconian. Oh, this is such an extremist act. But, as you look at this over the years, there's a concept called the doctrine of the inevitability of gradualism, this change blindness. So you don't really notice, over the course of 10 years, how bad things have gotten. So then when you have to do a hard reset to go back to, at least where things were 10 years ago, oh, this is such an extremist action. It's not an extremist action. An extremist situation is not being able to walk down the capital city of this country and without the fear that you're going to become the victim of a violent felony. That's extreme.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a frog in boiling water. You don't realize how bad it's gotten until you have some perspective on it. And it's important to have some perspective on it. Now, I do think, there are tried and true measures that DC was bad, then DC was good, and now DC is back to bad again. I think that it's not going to take a lot. Well, I mean, there's going to have to be some systemic changes. Look, they're going to have to change the no cash bail. They're going to have to treat 16, 17-year-olds who commit violent felonies as adults. You can't try them as juveniles and have them, again, I understand the complexities of the situation, but if you're 17 years old and you commit a violent assault, you should be tried as an adult, and you shouldn't be walking out on the streets within 48 hours of that action. I'm sorry. It's just undebatable. You know that you have the mens rea, you have the capacity to understand the consequences of your action, and you should, if you commit violent assault, you shouldn't be permitted to go out within 24 hours and commit another violent assault. And again, there should be some degree, the drug use. What really is stark with Washington, D.C. is when you say, I tell this story, when you come out of Union Station, the train station in Washington, D.C., you come out of Union Station and you're hit immediately with just this marijuana smell. Now, okay, we can talk about the legality of marijuana, but when you think about quality of life things, when you think about broken windows theory, and when you start to tolerate little things, somebody's urinating on the sidewalk, or somebody's feces, or some drug addict is passed out in front of you, or somebody's smoking marijuana around you, these little things begin to add up and begin to metastasize. And once you start tolerating the little things, then the big things start occurring with more frequency.
Well, and that is the inevitability of the doctrine of the inevitability of gradualism. So, okay, well, there was a point in time where smoking pot in public was an arrestable offense, but now through what I believe is a carefully cultivated campaign in the media and television and movies and everything else like that, well, it's just a pot offense. Now we're not going to arrest people for pot. Now we could just stand around and smoke joints in the middle of public. I absolutely agree with you that this is that gateway not only to other drugs, but it's also the gateway to having a society that begins to fall apart. Because, well, what is legal? What is not legal? What is moral? What is ethical? Right. And it's this attitude of I can do what I want when I want. And this is where the unscrupulous politicians come in, Mike. Let's be honest with this. Because the politicians come and say, hey, you know what? You're absolutely right. You should do what you want to do. And, it's everybody else's responsibility to stay out of your way so you can be you. And if you vote for us and if you give us money, then we'll make sure that your Airfingers, quote, freedoms are preserved. Your freedom to smoke dope in public, your freedom to do what you want to do, your freedom to go out and assault law-abiding citizens and not have to go to jail. Because the criminals are going to assert that that's their right.
I'm going to say, look, I don't have a problem with people who smoke weed. If you want to do it in your damn house. Do it in your house.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't again, in my face. Don't smoke in front of my kids. Right. Don't force me to have to deal with your decisions. That's where I stand on the whole freedom thing. Don't infringe upon my rights. Don't ask me to pay for it. Don't force me to agree with it and have to abide by it and advocate for it.
Yeah, I think there's somewhere reasonable that we can meet in this, but I don't think if you're coming from New Hampshire and you're coming to visit our nation's capital and you bring your 3-year-old son and your 5-year-old daughter and you come in on the train. You don't want to, the first thing that visits you as you walk out of that train station, you don't want to have your 5-year-old or your 3-year-old be assaulted with this unending wall of marijuana smoke, right? And, there's your homeless guy sitting there who's urinating right in front of your 3 or your 5-year-old. Again, this is what's really is mind-boggling about this, gentlemen, is that we even have to have this discussion. We've talked about earlier, we talked about the degree, the extent to which law enforcement is in Washington, D.C., the presence of law enforcement. It's insane that our nation's capital isn't this beautiful, welcoming city where people feel safe at all times. And it's just through gross levels. I think it's more than incompetence. I mean, as you said before, I think it's something bigger going on in the fact that, it's not just simply incompetence, although I do think incompetence plays a very powerful role in this. But I think it's a willingness to tolerate criminality. And I think that willingness, again, those days are gone. I like to think, you're talking about how this is going to be perceived years from now. I want to think, I think at some point, at least the president right now, at this point in time, look, American people are sick of this. And I think most people would agree with this, despite the fact that you hear this large minority screaming and yelling, pulling the usual canards, fascism at home, Nazism, et cetera, et cetera. This is a necessary step to ensure that our capital city is as great as it possibly can be.
Again, in the middle of in between righteous indignation and trying to be a voice of brevity here, the reality is that the people within the DC Beltway do not think like normal, rational people. They are highly ideological. They are highly politically motivated. They think in terms of think papers and strategy papers and what they can get out of things. They're not in step with the vast majority of people in the United States when it comes to voters. The vast majority of people are like, you're going to lock up people who are doing drugs, urinating, defecating on the sidewalks, blowing marijuana in my kids' faces, acting obscene in public, and making neighborhoods overall unsafe and unable to walk without being accosted by people. I'm all game with locking those people up. Go ahead and do what you got to do.
Yeah, and I think it's funny because you see a couple media reporters. There was somebody on MSNBC who was talking, was saying, "Well, I think that the real crime here is I'm more of a likely to be a victim of climate change or improper voter suppression than I am a crime of Washington D.C." And this is a reporter who lives in Washington D.C. It's like, come on. And then another reporter said something to the effect of, again, these are legacy left-wing reporters saying, I've lived in Washington, D.C. for 10 years and I've never had anything happen to me. Well, okay, buddy, so it's never happened to you. That means it never happens to anybody. This is the myopic viewpoint that you're talking about, the inside the Beltway. If it doesn't apply to me, then it doesn't apply to anybody. Or I'm more worried to be about climate change than being, accosted on the streets of D.C. It just, again, defies credulity.
The funny part about this is, like I said, about the congressional staffers and White House staffers and even some of the people who work at Fox, CNN, MSNBC, stuff like that. The hilarious part is that the people, the actual talking heads, the mouthpieces for the left can say that with impunity because, yeah, they can live. They live in the expensive parts where they don't allow that shit to happen in DC, where the elites live. You can't afford to live in those areas. Guess what? That's what you got to deal with. So their own staffers are the ones who have to deal with this shit. And yet they'll go online and they'll peddle that crap. And meanwhile, turning a blind eye to their own staffer getting mugged. There was a guy who got stabbed to death from one of the networks. I don't understand how you could sit there and be like, hey, Billy got stabbed, but that's an aberration. That doesn't happen. No, I got mugged too. Well, it's just you two.
Right. Well, as I said in the press conference today, you had a reporter who shared his story of his house being subject to an arson attack. So I mean, if you take anybody who's honest, look, the only people who are talking against this are the people who have this reflexive anger towards Donald Trump. Again, Trump derangement syndrome, where no matter what he does, I cured cancer. Oh, I rescued a baby from a drowning pool. Oh, that's evil. No matter what he does, they're just going to concoct some reason to call it fascism. And I think if you're being honest, even sincerely, if you watch the mayor of Washington, D.C., she's very careful about what she's saying because she has to accommodate the angry constituency she has. But I think at base, if you really look at what she's saying and how she's saying it, you kind of get the feeling that she understands the magnitude of the problem and welcomes the help that the federal government's going to be providing.
But I think this mindset here is pervasive. I remember 2 or 3 months ago, there was a situation where an individual who was high on drugs pulled a knife out and was attempting to stab people at a Chick-fil-A in Copley Plaza in Boston. An off-duty police officer drew a firearm, shot the guy. The commissioner for the Boston Police Department and Michelle Wu do a press conference where they apologize to the family of the attacker. I'm sorry, we don't apologize to criminals. You know what? Good. The guy takes the room temperature challenge. Outstanding. Kind of like George Floyd. He's never going to reoffend. Awesome. Good. We like dead criminals because they don't reoffend. So it kind of makes me wonder, like Michelle Wu or the New York City representative there who couldn't talk about or couldn't give an articulate answer to what a chain of custody was. How many of these people, these air fingers, quote, law office professionals, are diversity hires who are in position simply because they check a racial box, not because they're hired based upon core competencies and skill sets?
Yeah, certainly that's something to consider with the rise of crime in our cities. I mean, the extent to which there's a parallel correlation between wokeism and implementation of those ideals into police forces and increasing levels of crime. This is a formula. There is a tried and true formula, gentlemen, for ensuring that crime is. You're never going to abolish crime in cities. Of course, you're never going to get perfect. But to get to a point, again, I challenge you to the point where mid-2000s, we had most of our cities were really successful. I mean, you obviously had some of the outliers, but there was a lot. Washington, D.C., 2005, and again, I can attest to you as somebody who went to law school in the late 90s in Washington, D.C., and went to Washington, D.C. to have fun and go out to dinner and all that stuff many, many times. There was a time when I had no qualms going into D.C. or didn't feel at any level of danger. Of course, those times have passed. So there is a tried and true formula that these cities and institutions can institute if they just are willing to dispense with the wokeism, dispense with all the other stuff, and say, look, we're going to do what we know works to ensure that our cities are livable and safe.
The reality is, the world is not hyper-racial, hypersexual, all that crap. What we really need to be looking at when it comes to DEI hiring, what I see universally in every single case, is an ideological position. Every single person. Literally every single instance when it comes to DEI hiring, the first thing I see is their ideological positions. Man, woman, race, gender, sexual orientation, doesn't matter. Every single one of them is a Marxist. Every single one of them is a radical progressive. If you want to really look at DEI, the first thing we need to be looking at is the ideology, because all of them have it. Not a single person gets put into a position who isn't ideologically bound, regardless of how little or how much education or expertise they have in any industry. And that talks about, think about it from the perspective of the rank and file police officers. And this is what we were talking about before. If you have a woke individual who puts ideology over law enforcement, you're not going to have any institutional support if you're trying to do your job. So you're just going to be counting the days until you can get your retirement. And so I think that's certainly a case. Rank and file police officers in all of these cities can't count on institutional support, can't count on the support of their higher ups to ensure that they are protected if things start to go in a way that might be perceived as wrong for them.
That's a huge problem. And I mean, how can you be expected to do your job? How can you be expected to go into the street, do as it expected of you as a law enforcement officer? I mean, the majority of what you're trained on is classified as high liability, and it's high liability because you make the wrong decision, especially when you're operating with arguable government authority. Now you're open to 42 U.S. Code 1983 liability. Right. So now you get sued into oblivion, your agency gets sued into oblivion, and it just becomes a nightmare. No wonder that every single law enforcement agency in the country is understaffed. Nobody wants to do this job. I've got people. I'm a federal high liability trainer, active shooter response, tactical counterterrorism. I'm immersed in this stuff. I've gotten, in the past 3 days, I have gotten 5 separate direct contacts from ICE saying, "Hey, we want to hire you on with your skill set and what you do. We want to hire you on. $50,000 sign-on bonus and minimum $125,000 a year." And I'm like, thanks, but no thanks, because number one, I don't want to go to Los Angeles or San Diego, and number two, I'm genuinely concerned about, if I did take this job in 3 years, what's going to happen when Trump is out, and God forbid some bleeding heart liberal leftist satanic Democrat is now laying off, wholesale hyper wipeout everybody in federal law enforcement, which is going to wind up coming unless we can actually control and maintain control of the federal government, which we're not going to do because Republicans could screw up a cup of coffee.
Well, that's a conversation to be had at a different time. But I certainly think that if you get back to the point, if post George Floyd, post COVID, who really, do you want to be a police officer? I mean, look at the exposure you're getting if you're going to be a police officer. Do you want that kind of headache? And again, if you are a police officer, do you want to put yourself in a position where you can be left hung out to dry, knowing that you're not going to get any kind of support from your superiors, let alone the mayor on all the way on down through the chain of command?
And it's not even based on merit. When you look at the George Floyd situation, the Derek Chauvin case, it's literally you're one indiscretion away from becoming the next headline, and then your life is over with, literally or figuratively. Your family gets doxxed, your finances are destroyed, your kids are being harassed in school. Why? Because you're going out there and you're doing your job in good faith, yet somebody else is kissing the ass of the criminals, and they recognize that the criminals represent a voting bloc and they represent a monetary bloc, and they're more than happy to go out there and kiss the asses of people who have no understanding of how to behave or conduct their affairs in a decent, civilized society.
Yeah, one final point I want to really reiterate is who are the victims of these policies too? And this is a point I make oftentimes, is I don't see the police very often in my neighborhood. because there's no reason for them to come into my neighborhood, right? I have a safe neighborhood.
That's
I don't see the police.
That's your white privilege, Mike.
Oh, right. Yeah. Okay. So, but who are the victims here when police stop being effective in their jobs? Who are the poor and socioeconomically depressed individuals, and those demographics are the ones who are disproportionately harmed when police cease doing their jobs. When you have lawlessness reigning in the inner cities, what constituencies are harmed, overwhelmingly harmed? Look, if the police in Washington, D.C. stop doing their job, I just don't go into Washington, D.C. I don't live in Washington, D.C. I don't have to live in Ward 9 or in Southeast Washington, D.C. or Anacostia or wherever you're talking about. I don't live there, so I just avoid it. Yet the people when the police stop doing their job and they vacate a location, look at who the actual victims are of all of these bad policies. I think that's something to keep in mind in all of this, gentlemen.
Well, in closing, I would say that the victims are definitely the people who wind up becoming victimized by the criminals. But then in a roundabout way, it's also the criminals that are victimized because they're not held accountable. So naturally, what would you expect? I mean, if you're a shitbag criminal and you're not held accountable, you continue to be a shitbag criminal. And you're a victim of the system as well, too, because the system never gave you any corrective actions. And more to the point, I got to be honest with you, I don't necessarily think it comes from the government. It should start at home, because half of these criminal thugs needed a good ass kicking from mom and dad. But because dad's dead or in prison and mom's a crack whore on welfare, she's not out there kicking the asses of her kids. So what winds up happening? The kids raise themselves, they go on to be criminals, and the generation cycle continues over and over and over. Well, this is not a conversation that we are going to be able to end tonight. We are definitely going to continue it, and I want to thank you so much for jumping on again. Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation. Really quickly, what's the website if people want to check you out?
Yeah, landmarklegal.org. You just check out our website, landmarklegal.org. Check us out on X, Landmark Legal Foundation, or Facebook, Landmark Legal Foundation. Thanks,
Michael
gentlemen.
O'Neill.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Always appreciate it, Mike. Alrighty. Much more Granite State Live coming up right after this. Granite Gall is professor of economics at Pepperdine University and adjunct scholar at the Ludwig von Mises Institute. We're going to be talking about Fed Chair Jerome Powell. Is he the right man for the job? Well, we'll have that conversation, Gary, when Granite State Live continues right after this. Don't go away.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
The Spirit of a True Patriot. The inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest. Douglas Ernest dives into the thrilling and transformative journey of a man who defied the odds to forge his path as a soldier and a businessman. This book is more than an autobiography. It's a call to action. Experience the remarkable story of a man who never takes no for an answer. You can find The Spirit of a True Patriot, the inspiring story of retired Captain Douglas J. Ernest, on Amazon.
This could be the moment we've been waiting for, the chance to feel alive.
Sometimes we forget we live in one of the most beautiful states in the country. This summer, vacation right here and discover your new.
This is where it all begins. This is where it all begins.
Sounds like that should be background music to a Pepperidge Farm commercial. Pepperidge Farm remembers. Welcome back to Granite State Live on this Tuesday, the 12th day of August, 2025. 833-603-8255 if you would like to be a part of the program. Don't be shy. You can tell us we're idiots. Just do it on air. Have the courage. 833-603-8255. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com is the email if you would like to share your thoughts. GraniteStateLive@gmail.com. All right, so Julian, you want to talk money?
Sure, let's get into it.
All right. So we have joining us on the line is Gary Gall, the professor of economics at Pepperdine University and adjunct scholar at the Ludwig von Mises Institute. We have had him on the program before, the author of Freedom in One Lesson, the best of Leonard Read. I got to ask you, was it, did he write iPencil? Juan, I don't know if we have an audio issue here. I see he's like a politician. His mouth is moving, but nothing's coming out. I don't know. We may have to reset the connection here. I'm sorry, Gary. We're having a technical issue here, and we can't necessarily hear you. So I guess the topic coming up here is, should President Trump get rid of Fed Chair Jerome Powell? I think a great start would be, let's get rid of the Fed. Let's get rid of the Fed. Let's stop doing business with the Federal Reserve, which is a private banking institution, and let's actually start to put some beef behind our money. Let's restore the people's faith in the American dollar. That'll never happen.
Honestly, I wish the average person in the country actually knew what the hell the Fed was. When you say in the Fed, it ends up becoming a tagline for people like us on the right, because we actually know what it is. For the vast majority of people, they're like, in the Fed, you mean you want to get rid of the federal government? Are you crazy? God, I wish people were more educated.
Well, it just goes to prove that one thing that I have said, and this is, we have evidence of this, people are politically, economically, socially illiterate.
Yep.
Economic, illiteracy is, and I think I brought this up last week, you have people that are buying things they don't need with money they don't have, because they're trying to keep up with their neighbors who are buying more things that they don't need with money that they don't have. And I love it when people start talking about cars, for instance. Oh, I've got a Mercedes. Yeah, did you pay cash, or are you paying an inflated interest rate? You're buying something you can't afford. I love it when I see somebody that has a BMW parked in front of a trailer. Which I guess actually isn't that bad now, because here in New Hampshire, it's a trailer is $350,000. So maybe you're living high off the hog.
But right now, all I want is a Ford Bronco. I just want something. I don't need all the electronics. It needs to get me from point A to point B, and it needs to do what I need it to do. I'm kind of over all of it.
Should get a Yugo.
No, I want a Ford Bronco that says not OJ on the license plate.
Not OJ. Gary, are you back with us, or no? I guess not. I guess we're still trying to get Gary connected here. No, it boils down to a matter of economic illiteracy. People don't know how money works.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, because when people win the lottery, more people who win the lottery die broke. Mm-hmm. And this is a conversation that has come up so many times before. Why is that? And that's because the people who lack the financial literacy to go out and actually earn or make millions of dollars don't have the financial literacy to be able to keep a windfall amount of money. Yeah. Knew a guy down in Florida, $3.5 million in the Florida lottery. A couple of years later, broke. Mm-hmm. Goes out and buys a house for pretty much the full value of the lottery winnings, not realizing, oh, hey, Skippy, hate to break this to you, but you're going to have to pay property taxes on that. There's maintenance, there's upkeep, there's, especially down in Florida, if you don't maintain that, now we're going to have depreciation. Now the depreciation is going to start to grow exponentially, because now the elements are going to start to take root, and they're going to start to destroy that house. And it took 4 years to declare bankruptcy after a $3.5 million. And to be honest with you, think about it, $3.5 million. Is that really a lot of money today?
No.
No.
What I would end up doing if I had $3.5 million, what I would end up doing is paying off everything I owe. Pay off my house, pay off cars, pay off anything that I owe. and then be debt free and invest the rest. Make my money make more money, because I have a basic level of financial literacy. One of the failures that we have done to our U.S. education system is the vast majority of people graduate with absolutely no idea of economics, no idea of basic economics or finance. So when they go out into the world, they're easy prey. I used to see it in the military all the time. You get to your first duty station, you've never bought a car with your own money. Hell, you've never even had a job or been in the position to have to sign a contract like that. Now you're 18 years old, you're across the country. There's no parents there to tell you that you're about to make a stupid decision getting a Ford Mustang at a 30% interest rate off base at the local friggin' chop shop friggin' used car dealership out in Oceanside.
Oh,
and then you drive off that lot and you show up at work. You'd see it every time a new group of boots comes to the unit. They all come back with new cars, and you're sitting there going, you dumbass. You're going to be able to pay the payment on it, put gas in it on the first, and half the month for a week you'll be able to drive it around, and in the rest of the month you're not going to be able to drive it.
I used to own a nightclub out in Western Mass, and I remember one night I came in and I had a reserved parking spot as the owner of the club. I got a park. I'm not going to fight for a parking spot. So I come in there and there's an Acura NSX, brand new Acura NSX in my parking spot.
Nice car.
So I, of course, I go in and I'm talking to my doorman. Who's cars parked in my parking spot? Well, it was one of the regulars of the club who had gotten into a drunk driving accident a couple of years ago, and it wasn't his, or a couple of years prior to this. He wasn't driving; he was a passenger in the car. He wound up getting $125,000 settlement from the insurance company. So what does he do? He goes out and spends the entire thing, the entire settlement, on a car. On a car. So first of all, you drive the car off the lot, and now your car has depreciated. Cars are not assets unless they're classic collector's items.
Yeah.
But stupid money is going to go out and buy, and I don't mean stupid FU money. I mean money that was the people that have it are stupid.
Yeah.
Are going to go out and they're going to buy things that depreciate. You don't buy cars; they're not assets.
No.
They're going to depreciate. So, and this guy, I'm so cool. I'm 21 years old and I got an Acura. And I guess what? 20 years from now, you're going to be the 41-year-old dude driving a 20-year-old sports car that you can't afford to do an oil change on. Because you weren't smart enough to get the money legitimately.
That's why I hate the idea of buying a new car. That's why I'm such a classic car guy. I get older, and the more I'm thinking of, I'm going, do I really want a car that, yeah, sure, it has a whole bunch of bells and whistles and stuff, half of which I don't need and don't want, but I'm going to drive off the lot, and my car is going to be worth $3,000 to $5,000 less as soon as I cross that line than it was when I walked on the lot. Versus owning a classic car, 5 years from now, it's going to be worth $10,000 more. Why would I want a new car? I can put a sound system in that classic car. Yeah, I could put upgraded speakers and boom mat in it to make the sound nice and good, so it has less road noise. I can drive that Ford Bronco just fine. All I need is a sound system. I'm good. I don't need anything else. I don't know.
I mean, if you want to buy a new
I'm
car,
an old curmudgeon at this point.
If you want to buy a new car, buy something, or an almost new car. Buy a car that's 6 to 12 months off a lease.
Yeah.
It's got 5,000-10,000 miles on it, but somebody's already taken the depreciation hit, and you're gonna do fairly well on that. But I mean, you're right. I've got a brand new Jeep Grand Cherokee, and there are half of those things on that car that I don't need, I don't want. I have a hybrid, and I'll tell you, I would never do it. They just didn't make the gas model that I wanted, so I wound up having to go with a hybrid.
The Genesis we got for my wife that was a lease. We did the same thing because I was like, don't show me a car that's used. Show me a lease where you minimal miles, but it's taking the hit. So I don't have to, because I want something that, we're not going to put a lot of miles on it, but I want something that's going to outlast what I owe on it. Because the first thing I'm going to do as soon as I have I'm going to keep paying it down so I don't have to have that frickin' payment when that car is worth jack shit.
I remember I had a kid that used to work for me years ago, and his credit was in the tank. So he goes out and he buys a Ford Taurus, and he bought the Ford Taurus and he said, "Listen, man, I need as many hours as I can get because I've got bills." And I said, just out of curiosity, what are you so desperate for money for? He had a 5-year-old Ford Taurus that he bought from a buy here, pay here dealership. His monthly payment on a Ford Taurus, 5 years old, $723 a month.
God, that's got to be a hell of an interest rate. That is.
Oh,
that is
35,
absolutely-
40%.
Yeah.
It's almost predatory lending. Predatory lending. Talk about predatory lending. Remember the payday loan scams from the late 90s, early 2000s.
That's where I depart with the libertarians. They say there's no such thing as predatory lending. I go, yes, there is, because there is a point mathematically where there is no reason to take the hit and do that 35% interest rate. You're just doing it because you can, and just because you can isn't a good enough reason. There is a point where you're just gouging people because you can. You're taking advantage of somebody's desperation. So I understand New Hampshire. It's not like we're bustling with excellent, modes of public transportation. You don't have a license here. You're not going anywhere. So I get the idea of needing to have a car. But
that was interesting you bring that up about the public transportation, because the New Hampshire Business Review back in 2017 did a survey amongst realtors and real estate brokers, and the roundtable discussion was held up in Lebanon, New Hampshire. So they had what they would consider concerned stakeholders that were attending this roundtable discussion. Hypotherm was there, Wheelan was there, Dartmouth Hitchcock Medical Center, Dartmouth College, a couple of others, and they were discussing what is the barrier to people coming to New Hampshire. Number one reason why the eligible workforce was not relocating to New Hampshire. What do you think it was? Number one.
Public transportation?
No, it was actually number three.
Okay.
Number one was lack of adequate cell and broadband infrastructure.
God, that's something we've been promised for like the past 10 years.
Yeah.
And it still has yet to show up. I haven't seen it.
Yep. Number two was affordable workforce housing.
Okay.
Okay. And number three was lack of dedicated public transportation systems, which, I mean, again, at the time I was on WNTK and WUVR in the Upper Valley. I was invited as the local media person to be a part of this roundtable. And I mean, that you can kind of understand. I mean, if you're living out in Plainfield, or you're living out in Enfield or Grantham or something like that, you don't have the population density going in any location with such demand and such frequency that would warrant having a public transportation system. Yeah. And at the time, admittedly, Uber and Lyft weren't things. I don't know if there are adequate Uber and Lyft things up in like Grafton County or Sullivan County. There may be now that there's added demand, but the bottom line was that that lack of ability to get back and forth. Mm-hmm. That was something that was pretty significant to people, enough to actually have people saying, we're not going to be moving to New Hampshire because we don't have this infrastructure. I don't know if that is just coming through my mic or not. Okay, so evidently we are working on getting Gary Galls here. So
what my problem is with the workforce housing thing, and I see it a lot. Half the shit that is proposed is shit that's going to make the problem worse long term, as opposed to things that are actually going to eliminate the problem and allow for natural growth and natural remedies to start taking place. Because the problem is that we've manipulated the market and we've manipulated the housing sector so damn much that we're so far from the market that it's not going anywhere.
All right. Well, Gary Gall, professor of economics at Pepperdine University. We've been prattling on here as we've been waiting for you to reconnect. So hopefully you can hear us.
Well, I can prattle too if you let me.
Well, there we go. Okay. So we're all going to be a bunch of happy prattlers. Welcome to the program, Gary. Great to have you on.
I'm sorry for the technical issues.
That's I don't know if it's on your end, we'll blame you, we'll excoriate you, we'll lambaste you, we'll wet noodle whip you. But then
I'm married and I have children, so that won't bother me.
Well, there we go. All right. So we started talking about does Trump eliminate the Fed Chair Jerome Powell? For me, to be honest with you, I think they should get rid of the Fed entirely. End the Fed, get rid of it, put money back in the government's control, stop working through this private banking cartel, and actually start to restore people's faith in the American greenback. But I know I live in a rose-tinted fantasy world. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, I think we talked about this the last time we were on, but I usually start by telling my students that they need to remember that in the hyperinflation we had not that long ago, it was the Fed's creation of an ungodly amount of new reserves in the system that expanded the money supply at a rate that has never been seen in American history.
Now, was that QE or QE2? Was that which quantitative easing phase was that?
It was during the COVID inflation.
Oh, okay.
It's like that prices went up 30% in 3 years. That's how fast the money supply, and it had been inflating very slowly. They dumped so much money in the system that they created this massive inflation. Well, now what do they have to do? Oh, we have to bring the inflation down. Well, when the people who caused the problem tell you we're the best ones to solve the problem we caused, I sort of have a problem taking their advice that way. So from that perspective, I would say I'm hesitant to recommend anybody who caused that to happen. Now, when Trump says, I want to, appoint somebody who's more favorable to me and tell people now who it's going to be or tease that name, he's trying to put more pressure on Powell to act like he is. But the fact is, we don't know what the right interest rate is. And, I saw an article a couple of days ago where they're talking about how the Fed claims to be data driven. Well, what have we found out about how good the data is? The data is wrong. It is it's revised all the time. Well, how can it be data driven when the data is wrong, right? You have to know what you're talking about. And so I think the issues going on with BLS stuff right now are quite interesting in the sense that, right, given what the Fed says we're data driven, then maybe we ought to make the data better. I mean, why are there all those revisions in the BLS? Well, the reason is most of the companies that are interviewed don't respond very fast. That initial survey is basically the first 2 weeks of the month who responded. Well, that's not a random sample of what you're looking at. It is usually the larger firms that have people who do this job and they get it out quickly. Well, what you're surveying is large firms. Well, that means you're almost getting no data at all from medium-sized firms and certainly none from small firms and none at all from startups ever. Well, you're leaving out those things that change the most rapidly at the turn of the business cycle. Those things aren't led by the big firms. Those are right, guys. I'm so frustrated. I go out and work for myself because I couldn't find a job. It's the people who take a risk at a startup, the people who work for small business. That's where the changes show up. And that's never in the data because to save money, they primarily survey large businesses because you get a more larger coverage. Well, but that means that they're guessing at everything else. And then they do the big revise in February. They go back to, Social Security data, earnings data that are published for the year, and they see how many people they missed. Well, those things are huge revisions, and they're by the nature of things. The most useful thing that a new commissioner at labor would do is find a way to have a real sample of people that's valuable. But the government never spends money to find out more. Right? Why has there not been an update to some of the bias in the CPI? Well, it costs money. Why haven't they do a new survey for the base year? Well, it costs $2 billion. We don't really want to know those things in the government. They want to use it to manipulate things. So I have some issues. As I used to tell my students, nothing in macroeconomics is measured correctly. So what you got to do is you got to look at multiple measures of things, all of which are biased, all of which are lagged and all have problems, and get a sense of that gestalt. If you don't do that, you're just picking one number out of a gazillion ones, all of which are biased, and saying this is the truth, and you're going to get in trouble.
Gary, this is not a gotcha question, Gary. I'm just curious. Do you know who Daryl Huff is? Does that name ring a bell?
Wait, is that? I seem to remember a fullback.
No, not a sports guy. I'm
blanking on the rest.
He wrote a fantastic publication in 1954 called "How to Lie with Statistics."
I
and
have that book. I'm sorry.
I love
make the connection, but that's true.
Yeah, I love that book because what it does is, and I would encourage people. You can get a free copy of it actually if you just Google "How to Lie with Statistics." You'll pull up, I think, probably the first 2 or 3 Google references are going to be downloadable PDFs. But it's a great book to read because what it does is it explains very simply how by simply manipulating data sets you can control the outcome of any study that you want. So whether it's the CPI, or whether it's any of the information coming out of BLS, Bureau of Labor Statistics, any of this information, I can get those numbers to reflect any presupposition that I have based upon the data sets that I'm running, the numbers, the particular angles. I can manipulate all of that data to reflect whatever pre-desired outcome that I have. And I can use that information to effectively lie to the masses. And politicians have been playing this game for years. Unfortunately, what Darrell Huff did was actually put pen to parchment and say, hey, listen, I'm going to show you exactly how you're getting screwed. And it's as true today as it was back in 1954.
Hell, you can just
I
very
was
simply...
surprised by it. Oh, good.
I was just going to say, you could very simply manipulate data by just changing how you ask the question. The very words that you use manipulate the entire outcome of the study.
Yeah, but what I was surprised when I first looked at it, and this is a long time ago, how much of it is just about presentation.
Mm-hmm.
You have a data series. Well, you truncate something, and you don't put that little truncation indicator on there. Well, it makes something look like it happened different than it is, right? Or you pick the beginning, start, and end date. I used to tell my students, let me pick the functional form and the start and end dates, and I can make anything happen.
Yeah.
Right. And so, yes, it's when people learn how to do statistics right, you have to remember that they have also learned how to do it right in the direction they want by doing the statistics wrong. Everybody who understands the statistics knows you can lie with those things, and the pay is often better for lying with them.
Oh, yes.
What I wanted you to do, Gary, if you wouldn't mind, is if you could just explain in the simplest of terms, what is the beef between Trump and even Munchin now? Because Trump is blaming Munchin for pushing Jerome Powell. So what is the beef between these guys, and what is it that Trump is seeing from Powell that he considers to be so egregious?
Well, it's much the same as the mistake he made in firing the labor commissioner. He didn't know that the labor commissioner has no power at all over the process or what happens. And yet he fired her because he thought the process was biased. And I saw a good, interesting comment by William Beach, a former BOS commissioner, who said it was bad, intern or somebody should have told him that they have that power. Well, I think that someone, before they blow their top, ought to know that.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think it's the failure of an intern or somebody who should have told him. I think Trump should keep his mouth shut till he knows what he's talking about. But that's never going to happen. At least it has not happened very much in my experience. But the issue is, I think Trump wants to go after anybody who, doesn't give him what he wants to hear. He once said he was just like he was at 12. And you know what? He was a 12-year-old playground bully. Got him sent to military school because he was misbehaving. And he says he hasn't changed. The fact is, there's an issue in terms of future trust and how I'm perceived if I'm Donald Trump. He doesn't want to be perceived as doing worse than tremendous at anything. He wants to be the gold-plated guy.
Well, it's kind of interesting that the gold-plated guy is the guy that's having an issue. He's doing renovations to the White House, but yet his big issue with Powell is the fact that Powell is overseeing multi-billion-dollar renovations to the central bank's main headquarters. So it's kind of the pot calling the kettle black here, Gary. If I'm not misunderstanding this issue.
It's just another lever to say, I can push you with this too. I can accuse you of this and make you look bad for a few days in the press, and lots of people are going to think bad things about you if you don't do what I want. It's just one more lever. I'm going to do this too. Trump, I wonder if Trump ever had an overrun on any of his buildings, putting all that gold stuff in there. I have a feeling he's had a few overruns of his own.
Yeah, but when it's private enterprise, though, you don't have to answer to people the way that you'd have to answer to people if you were, I don't know, say chairman of the Fed. But never underestimate the power of media-based character assassination. It's a beautiful thing. Gary Gall, professor of economics at Pepperdine University, author of Freedom in One Lesson, the best of Leonard Read. Always a pleasure having you on the show, sir. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Come on back anytime.
Thank you.
All
Okay,
right.
take care. I'll try and get my stuff fixed.
All right, no worries. No. We won't blame you. We'll blame our producer. He's been drinking White Claw, so it's his fault.
Okay.
He's. All right.
He took ire with that.
Stuff I don't drink to know what you're talking about.
Thank you, Gary. God bless. Be well.
Mr. Producer took ire with that. It's high noon. He's drinking.
Oh, it's high noon. That's right. We don't want to mischaracterize the just do Boone's Farm and be done with it. Good God. All right, going to take a quick break. When we come back, Mark Quann, author of, you're going to like this, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes.
And we'll be doing keg stands, people.
Yep.
Tune in.
Use the buy, borrow, and die strategy to get rich and stay rich. All right, everybody wants to be rich, so let's learn how to be rich with Mark Quann when Granite State Live continues. Much more coming up right after this. Don't go away.
She has Betty Hutton's figure, Lana Turner's classy figure, and the chassis.
New Hampshire Republican Governor Kelly Ayotte has been making a lot of noise about how she's funding education. The Republican budget she just signed provides more money for education than ever before. She even bragged the other day that New Hampshire is top 10 in the country when it comes to funding our children's education, as if giving money to school systems has anything to do with learning. If you look at the math, and if you got schooled in New Hampshire, the odds are good it's not your best subject. It's the exact opposite. The more money we throw at schools, the less kids learn. We're committed to wasting money on an experiment that failed, unless wasting money to drive parents to homeschool their kids was the goal. We prefer to pick on Democrats, lower hanging fruit and all that, but our rhetorical woodshed doesn't discriminate. If that sounds refreshing, you need to check us out. This is Steve McDonald for GraniteGrok, and we'll keep shining the light on them for you.
Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story. In this raw, anti-heroic tale, Tyler Gray dissects his life, exposing the unseen war within and exploring the question, what happens when the very abilities that made you a superhero in the eyes of the world turn you into a supervillain in your own life? Despite rising PTSD awareness, we're losing more warriors at home than in war. Forged in Chaos rips the mask off the warrior experience, exposing the truth that most never dare to face. Find Forged in Chaos, a warrior's origin story, written by Tyler Gray on Amazon.
Would you rather spend time with family and friends in the pool or at the barbecue rather than landscaping your yard? Well, Augusta Lawn Care is here to help you with all of your landscaping needs. Proudly serving southern New Hampshire, we handle everything. Weekly mowing, spring and fall cleanups, bush trimming, mulch installs, lawn treatments, aeration, dethatching, and even snow plowing and salting when the dreaded winter hits. Call Augusta Lawn Care today and let your yard be the best looking yard on the block. Call 603-331-4768. Augusta Lawn Care, locally owned, professionally done. Call 603-331-4678 or visit us online at AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry. That's AugustaLawnCareServices.com/Londonderry.
United We Stand. A Marine's Fight, written by Marine Corps veteran Julian Eschyard. This book examines the deepening fractures in our nation, political division, government overreach, and a fading sense of shared responsibility, and offers a battle-tested path forward. A Marine's Fight is a bold and urgent call to action for every American who believes in the founding ideals of our republic. United We Stand. A Marine's Fight can be purchased on Amazon.
So, number one, we already heard this one, Juan. Number two, you're supposed to tell me when we're about to go back on air. Instead, you're just, you're trying to win me over with cheese. Turn the camera, if you would, please. No, you're not going to do that, are you? Our producer is eating pepperoni pizza with like a 40. What is the fluid ounce content of that can?
Was it 18 ounces? 20?
He's drinking a high noon tall boy.
Yeah, it's a tall boy.
Oh, dear God. I don't know. You know what? Maybe this is how politics should be. Maybe we should just get all these people liquored up and just let it go.
Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, the politicians I've got drunk are really, really honest with what they think.
Oh, yeah. It's really interesting what you wind up seeing and hearing and catching on video when they're not paying attention.
Oh my God.
What is going on?
This is going downhill fast.
Oh,
All
no.
right. Do we have our next guest, Mr. Producer?
It looks like we got
do.
him.
All right. Mark Quann, author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. I like him already. Use the buy, borrow, die strategy to get rich and stay rich. President and CEO of Remy Group, offering custom-tailored financial strategies to business owners, the emerging affluent, and high net worth individuals. Mark, welcome to the program. Great to have you.
Good to be here.
So I can pay zero taxes.
You can, absolutely.
All right. This reminds. We're just joking. We're just joking here. But I remember Steve Martin had a routine back in the 70s. How to be a millionaire and not pay taxes. Number one, get $1 million. Number two, don't pay taxes. And when the IRS comes knocking on your door, 2 simple words. Do you remember what those 2 simple words were?
I didn't catch that one.
I forgot.
Oh, that'll work.
That I think that would definitely create some problems.
I should have put that one in the book.
Yeah. I suspect, and I haven't read your book, I got to be honest, but I suspect that when we start talking about paying zero taxes, a lot of this has to do with corporations and trusts and how we set money up so that way there were beneficiaries of our trusts, not necessarily W-2 earners. Am I kind of on the right track here or no?
No, it's actually very, very incredible simple. I've taught this to 600 people, all ordinary Americans, in the past 4 years. I was a financial advisor and investment advisor for 15 years before this. I used to teach hundreds of financial advisors. I was the financial advisor for CPAs. This is my 4th book. The strategy is incredibly simple, and anybody of any income can do it. And you can start with $100 invested in your iPhone to start the strategy. Buy, borrow, die. So you could buy stocks in your iPhone. If you never sell them, you never pay taxes. If you can take low interest loans secured by the stock, that essentially is new money that you never had to work for. You can invest it somewhere else. You could buy Bitcoin with it. You can buy real estate with it. And then you combine the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act, which is now the big beautiful bill, and you can use real estate to wipe out your W-2 income.
So I think one of the questions that people had, concerns that people have, to be honest, is you were starting to see some discussion about this during the Biden administration, and certainly under the storm clouds of a potential Kamala Harris presidency, was that they wanted to go after unrecognized or unrealized capital gains. That if you had an increase in your stock portfolio or your Bitcoin portfolio, that would be taxed even if you didn't liquidate those holdings and realize those profits.
Correct.
How would something like that, because I got to be honest with you, I think with the change of administration, I don't think we're done with that conversation yet. I think that there will at some point in time, in the interest of fueling reckless spending, be a desire to start going after people's unrealized capital gains. So how would something like that affect this strategy?
Don't worry about it. Nancy Pelosi and every politician has massive amounts of unrealized capital gains in their real estate and stock portfolios. So don't worry, that will never change. I can give you example of when Democrats had opportunities to close massive tax loopholes and they didn't. They opened them up and even made them more powerful. Even in the COVID stimulus bill, there was another hidden one. There's just every time the Democrats had the opportunity to close tax loopholes, they don't. They could have closed the backdoor Roth IRA. All they had to do was sign a piece of paper. They didn't. They buried it, and they made it even easier and better to do it. So no, it's never going to get closed. Don't worry about that. Our politicians are that corrupt. They'll never close it because they use it, and all their donors are using it too. So don't worry about that. Now in Canada, where I'm from, you can't do that. I was just visiting my family in Canada. They closed the loopholes in Canada for buy, borrow, die, but anybody can do it. I have 2 companies. One does consulting for like high net worth individuals. The other one helps ordinary Americans. We start them with a few $100. It's called The Perfect Portfolio. It was actually Newsmax. I'd been building this company for 4 years, and then Newsmax reached out to me and said, "Can you write a book to prove that ordinary Americans can do this?" And I agreed to it. It took me about 10 months. wrote it down. It's very simple. It's very easy to understand. And like I said, I can teach it to anybody. I could give you examples. You can open up a brokerage account on your iPhone. I think it's easier to get wealthy than any other time in history. Take AI, ask AI, what 3 AI stocks should I invest into for maximum profits? What 3 quantum computing stocks should I invest into for maximum profits? Start buying them in your iPhone, never sell. You can take a low interest margin loan when you have $2,000 in your brokerage account. So anybody can do this. You could send it to your bank account. You could buy real estate with it. You can do anything. And then when you die, you can die with up to $30 million with a stepped up basis. I mean, up to $30 million goes to your family, 100% tax free, no trust required for tax purposes. You obviously need to will the assets to your family, but you can do this with stocks and ETFs, life insurance, real estate, cryptocurrency, and precious metals. Simply buy it, borrow from it, never sell it, die, you exited the tax system.
But you still have to pay
And
the money
W-2s.
back, though.
No, you don't. No, it does matter. So I have a YouTube channel where you can actually look at my brokerage account if you want. I paid $388 in interest last month, in interest on the margin loan. I made over 10,000, so it doesn't really matter. The account's growing so fast, the little bit cost of interest doesn't even matter. And in fact, I don't actually pay the interest, I let it accrue. I'm not trying to get out of debt. I'm trying to grow my assets tax-free and borrow to buy more assets. Because when I borrow to buy more assets, that's not income. I don't pay taxes on it. I don't have to work for it. And in fact, I'm fighting inflation with inflation. Inflation is the creation of money. When you create money, even using a margin count, you're creating inflation. It's a very powerful strategy because inflation steals the wealth from everybody else. Inflation makes the rich wealthy. And, again, I've been teaching this to 600 ordinary Americans. These are plumbers. The guy who built my deck, I taught him. The guy who stained my deck, I taught him. The guy who lived next door to me, he's going to mow my lawn. I taught him buy, borrow, die. He started with a few $100 in a brokerage account. So anybody can do it.
So one of the questions that I do have is, and this is, we're not talking about leveraging debt, are we? Or is this a strategy off of the debt leveraging concept?
Well, when you say leverage debt, you have to realize that working hard is the highest penalty in life. You work hard, massive taxation. You have to spend your time and you have to fight inflation and taxes. But the rich go, I don't want to work. That's ridiculous. I have to fight inflation and taxation. It's brutal. So they use debt. When you buy a piece of real estate with 3% down, you borrow the other 97%. That's money you created out of thin air. It was never taxed. See, the rich aren't trying to pay off their real estate. They're trying to buy real estate with very little money. As it goes up, they borrow from that real estate and buy more real estate, and they take on more debt. There's just hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars that get created just with financial literacy rather than hard work and taxation.
I had a good friend that said to me, we were having a conversation about this very thing over cigars one day, and we were talking about being rich is not about necessarily, I mean, you could certainly say this, that being rich is about liquidity. And we would say that is. I mean, if you have liquidity and you don't have to worry about it, that's great. But true wealth to me, if you were to ask me, what does it mean to be truly wealthy? What it means is that my money gets up and goes to work. I don't. That I have, and what you were saying, the average American doesn't, we were talking about this earlier, that the average American really is economically illiterate because they don't know how money works. So it's like, I have this extra bill that I have to do, so I'm going to go get a part-time job. And you're falling into the oldest trap there is, which is trading your time for your money. And there's a finite amount of your time. And so we have to start thinking about ways to build passive income. So do you have a business that continues to make money while you're sleeping? That's a great thing because you're not getting up and going to work. Your business continues to make money. And then your investment vehicles are making money. So your money is getting up in the morning and going to work. You're not. You actually have the ultimate wealth, which is control and freedom over your time and your schedule.
I'll take it a little bit further. When you say financial literacy, everything you've ever been taught to school, everything your financial advisor's ever been taught in school, everything your financial advisor believes, and everything your CPA believes about tax avoidance, it's all been provided by big government and Wall Street. Even the regulatory authority that creates the financial education is actually a self-regulatory organization, self-regulatory authority. It's not. Retirement accounts are garbage. You're mathematically never going to retire on your retirement account. The purpose of a retirement account was to make sure you keep working forever and then you get hammered in taxes and pass the tax problems to your heirs. Retirement accounts are rigged. They're rigged for massive taxation when you retire, and they actually trigger the taxation on your Social Security benefits, so then they can double tax you on there. That's called provisional income. I don't use a retirement account. You realize just the word retirement is a word created by Wall Street to make you think you have to go to work hard every day, pay your taxes, get good credit, save money, save in a retirement account so you can retire one day. All those words were created by Wall Street. And even the financial education in schools. If you believe you need to work hard, save money, get good credit, put money into a retirement account, that is the trap. That is the trap you're letting yourself fall into. It's not true. You can open up, you don't need a retirement account to retire. You don't need a 529 plan for your kids. You don't need a 457. You don't need a 403B, a 401k, an IRA, and all that stuff. All that stuff is just to confuse you. You just need a brokerage account, the ability to buy stocks like Amazon or whatever you want to do, just never sell it. Anybody can take a margin loan, send it to their bank account, and they're doing buy, borrow, die. The trap is financial literacy is total fraud. Everything. I left the industry in 2008. I was disgusted. We were setting up 401k plans. There's no talk about retiring the employees. The 401k was created to trap you in there. Think about it. You lock all your money into a retirement account so you never can create passive income stream. The government gets to hammer you in taxes and it triggers taxation of your Social Security benefits. And then you're required to liquidate it at 72. And then whatever passes to your heirs is taxed at regular income tax rates. What a scam. I mean, the whole system is garbage. And that's a compliment to the system. I left in 2018. It cost me a fortune to leave. I gave up all of the passive income, everything in 2018. I wrote my second book, and then coronavirus happened. I was making a ton of money. When the market crashed, I was posting it all on my Instagram channel. You can go back and look at all the posts. I was making a ton of money. And my friend said, you should start a financial education company. I'm like, all right, we called it The Perfect Portfolio, right? And we built it over the last 4 years, taught it to 600 people. And Newsmax said, hey, can you write a book to prove that not ordinary people? I'm like, all right, good, I'll write a book on it. So there's Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, thanks to Newsmax.
It's, it's amazing to me that I think when people hear about this, first of all, when people hear about any of this, that flies in the face of what I think a lot of people consider financial convention. They look at it and they say, it's got to be illegal. It's got to be a scam. It's got to be, something like that. Perfect example.
IRS tax codes. Yeah.
So, one of the things that I've said many times is when you, if you are a W-2 wage earner, you have withholding that's taken out every paycheck, and so that goes to at least ostensibly to offset your federal tax burden, and then what you don't pay in federal taxes you get a refund on. And so I did this, and I've recommended people do this, and people are amazed. So instead of having the government take 20% of your paycheck out and now go into a slush fund, why don't you not have withholding taken out and then take that money and invest that money into a moderate growth, moderate risk investment vehicle that maybe pays 11 to 15%. I know some people that have turned around, done Bitcoin, and done a hell of a lot better than 11 or 15%, and then pay your taxes out of that. But then, and then you're, because you're giving the government an interest-free loan for a year, and then people, again, to evidence that financial illiteracy, are turning around saying, "Oh, the government's giving me money." No, you idiot! The government is giving you some money back that you didn't pay interest on. They didn't pay interest on. You're giving them money to use for free. Why don't you make money in the process? Well, that can't be legal. Of course, it's legal.
I started putting monthly allotment of money going into an AI day trading platform, 2 AI day trading platforms that turn out about 15% to 7% monthly each. And I just put a little bit more in it each month and allow it to keep doing its work for me. That way, you don't even have to be somebody who follows the market. You let it pick the stocks for you, let it friggin', buy low, sell high, and just keep on doing it. Like nowadays, it's gotten so easy to just let we have so much technology. Let it do itself. Let the money leverage itself, and then you can reap the benefits later. So you don't have to sell back your labor, because ultimately, that's where I want to get to.
Mark, does your strategy work with Bitcoin portfolios too, or any type of crypto portfolio?
Absolutely. Even Coinbase, if you notice, Coinbase had a borrow feature. So the rich people are buying Bitcoin. They just keep buying it forever. They don't care what the price is. They never sell it. They never pay taxes. Even Coinbase added Coinbase Borrow, where you can take money and you can send fiat, fake US dollars, to your account for buying other investment assets. Better yet than trying to avoid taxes, take your W-2 income. If you have a house, you can rent your house on Airbnb, go buy another one. If you rent it on Airbnb, you can qualify for the short-term rentals loophole. This is a IRS tax code. If you put 100 hours into managing your Airbnb, you can take the depreciation on your rental property and wipe out your W-2 paycheck, your dividends, everything. I just don't sell assets. Never sell them. Just borrow from them. So no, there's a couple different ways to wipe out W-2. Another one, I'll give you an example. People donate to a church or charity. Okay, that's good. Why not invest all that money into your brokerage account? Keep jamming it in there. Take a low interest margin loan, send it to your bank account, and donate that to a charity or to church. That's a double tax deduction because you're creating a tax deduction on money that didn't exist. Now the government owes you money. And all that money that was at your church is now invested in your brokerage account, continuing to grow tax-free for the rest of your life, or you can borrow again. If I borrow to buy a lawnmower for my property, hey, that's a business expense. I got a tax-deductible lawnmower. If I go on vacation, I will do a business trip or something. I went to Bitcoin 2025 and 2024. Those are business trips. I just pressed the borrow button, jumped on a plane, wrote it off my taxes. I went to Los Angeles to visit my wife's family in Los Angeles. We went there. I had a couple business meetings, wrote the whole thing off my tax return. Didn't cost me a dime, and the government owes me money. But you can do that as a business owner, but there's lots of ways for W-2 employees to reduce their tax liability. And eventually everybody should be using buying and borrowing. Retirement accounts do not work.
So words have meaning. Obviously, we understand this. And I think when the average person hears the word borrow, they're automatically thinking, so that's now a liability. And it definitely sounds like what you're saying is that is not necessarily the case in every situation. If you would, please, could you explain how borrowing money is not the debt-laden pejorative that I think most people have come to understand the word borrow to imply?
Well, borrowing money is, you have to understand IRS tax codes. You have two choices. You can submit to the existing system, and your entire life, you are the OP in other people's money. I mean, you're making banking corporations and government and Wall Street wealthy. All you're doing is feeding big government and Wall Street. The rich go, wait a second. If I can invest and borrow money, yes, that's a low interest debt, but I can even write that interest off on my tax return. But I didn't have to work for the money. I can immediately save 40 or 50%, depending on where I am, just by borrowing the money. If I invest it into another asset, great. If I invest in Bitcoin, according to Fidelity, Bitcoin's going to be at $1 million per Bitcoin around 2034. Yale just bought $117 million of Bitcoin assets. There's so many opportunities to build wealth. If you invest in artificial intelligence or quantum computing, and how do you do it? Go ask AI how to invest into it. Start buying those things. Anything that powers Bitcoin, powers artificial intelligence, anything that powers Bitcoin mining or anything like that, all those things are massive opportunities to make money. And you can put $100 into it if you want these days. It's amazing. You could take $500, buy two AI stocks, two quantum computing, and some company that powers nuclear powers, and you can find it all with your iPhone. It's super simple. It's just not that hard to get wealthy anymore.
All right, so Mark, if people want to check out your book, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes, Using the Buy, Borrow, Die Strategy to Get Rich and Stay Rich, how can they find your book?
They can just go to Amazon, Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. My company that does financial education is The Perfect Portfolio, so theperfectportfolio.com. I have tons of YouTube content, tons of videos and the stuff. You can watch it, learn it. You can even look at my own portfolio. I can send people video content from this stuff. Again, my goal is to actually train. I want to create 1 million new millionaires. It may take me another decade to do it, but I got about 600 people using the strategies. By the end of the year, I'll be in a few thousand. Next year, I'll be in the tens of thousands, and hundreds of thousands, and then the millions. So I'm not going to stop on this. I grew up absolute poverty for 3 generations of my family. I've done security guard work. I've been on social programs when my family was too poor. I've been the factory worker. I've been the bricklayer. I've spent weeks under houses drilling concrete in Los Angeles. I've been robbed so many times by knife point in Los Angeles when I was there, when I was growing up in high school. I've been through the ringer, right? As just grew up pretty rough, and now I'm financially independent at 47 years old. I never have to work again. And I didn't learn this in the financial industry. The 15 years in the financial industry, all it taught me is how corrupt the industry and how everything you're learning is bad. Your financial advisor is not going to make you financially independent. Your CPA doesn't know how to retire and pay zero taxes. You got to learn it yourself. The government's not going to help you, and you can't count on Social Security.
So, in essence, be a fiscal contrarian.
You are your own fiduciary. You can get smarter than most CPAs and financial advisors just within the book. If you spend 1 hour a day for the next 100 days just learning the strategies and learning about the short-term rental loophole, the Augusta rental, the rep status, buy, borrow, die. I even put examples of my own portfolios on the YouTube channel. You can just go look at my portfolio and start with $100 on YouTube channel. The perfect portfolio.
All right, theperfectportfolio.com. Mark Quann, author of Be Smart, Pay Zero Taxes. I want to thank you so much for your time this evening. Interesting. I'm going to check that book out. So,
all right, good.
All righty.
Thanks for having me.
All right, talk to you soon.
Bye-bye.
Thank you again. All right, that is wow. It's already 9 o'clock. Already, that's it. Here we go.
It's the end of the night.
All right. That is going to do it for this week's edition of Granite State Live. I want to thank our guest tonight, Michael O'Neill, Vice President of Legal Affairs at the Landmark Legal Foundation, Gary Galls, Professor of Economics at Pepperdine University, and author Mark Quann. Granite State Live at gmail.com. If you would like to let your voice be heard, we'd love to hear your emails, good, bad, or indifferent. Keep that feedback coming in. 833-603-8255. The show may be off the air at 9 o'clock, but that doesn't mean that the voicemail stops, so you can feel free to leave us a message as well. 833-603-8255. Again, Granite State Live at gmail.com. Julian, as always, a pleasure.
It was a good show. I think we went on a good rant. I think we got a lot of information. I hope we added some brevity to the world. And you know what? Make sure you go follow, like, and subscribe to Ram TV Live on all major platforms. Go check the old episodes. Share it with your friends. Share it with your family. And you know what? If you don't, well, call in and challenge us so we can rip your jellyfish spine out of your body.
And just remember, as soon as we step out of the studio, we have to go deal with a production team that is hopped up on pepperoni pizza and White Claws. So this is going to be very interesting. All right.
I'm hopped up on Mountain Dew.
There we go. All right. So until next week, folks, stay safe, be well, and remember, be nice to one another, please, because civility does work. God bless everybody.